Hey everybody, hey, I've got an art activity I'd like to share out with you. This Wednesday, April 22nd, is Earth Day, and that's kind of the inspiration for this project. Earth Day is a day set aside to remind everyone how important it is that we take care of the earth and care for our environment. And we talk a lot about reduce, reuse, and recycle when we're talking about Earth Day as a way that we can each do our part. So I thought this could be a lot of fun to kind of explore how we can use recycled materials to make a three-dimensional sculpture. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. I want to show you a few of the things that I had around my house that you might want to consider for this. I've got things like styrofoam, plastic water bottles, paper tubes, little plastic cups and lids, cartons, tubes, even magazines and paper bags work out really great for some of these ideas. I'm sure you can probably come up with even more ideas than that, but that gives you a few ideas, at least thinking about what you might want to consider using for your sculpture. Before I get going on that, I do also want to talk to you a little bit about abstract art as a reminder, because rather than making a sculpture that represents a particular object or something that we would recognize as something else, I'd like you to be thinking about how you can be making your sculpture as an abstract work of art. And abstract really just means that it doesn't represent something that we recognize in everyday life. So rather than making a sculpture of your dog or an airplane or something, this is strictly going to be about using these recycled materials to make shapes and lines and colors to make an interesting three-dimensional sculpture. So let me get going here and show you my first example. So paper would be what you would be using for this. Magazines, coupons, paper bag, any of those would be options for you. I've already assembled a few of my pieces here, and you can see that I folded my papers to get some different shapes. I've got triangles, I've got curvy lines, I've got angles and straight lines. It's just each one is a little bit different depending on how I chose to fold it, but also determined by the length of my paper. So the longer the paper, obviously the bigger your strip. What I found is I really only needed about a half of a piece of paper to give me plenty to fold it, because once I folded it 3 or 4 times, it gave me enough stability that these can stand on their own, and it's not too thick. So one of the things that's really great about this particular material is because having the folds on each end, if you take one end and just kind of fold in just a tiny little bit to make it a little bit smaller than the other end, you can push the one side into the other, and it actually closes it up to make a shape, requiring no glue, no tape. So you can really do this entire project just with folded paper. One of the things you're going to want to keep in mind is making sure that when you're folding, that you're really careful in getting nice straight folds so that your width stays the same and it's nice and clean, because the better the fold, the easier it's going to be to get some of your straighter edges to stand up. And what's important about this one is it's not about just making a chain of shapes, but it's about how you choose to have all the pieces kind of tell a story. So how can you have some of them kind of leaning or standing up? What angles, are connected to others that kind of make it an interesting design for your paper sculpture. And that's kind of essentially how the folded paper goes. My next example was strictly made out of cardboard. I have no other materials other than cardboard on this. So things like cereal boxes or cracker boxes, any type of a heavier weighted cardboard that's got some stability will work really great for this. I happen to have a box that came with some snack bags in it, so I kind of took advantage of the fact that there were some pictures of color, which I thought made for interesting detail. But I also really like the fact that part of this, depending on the angle that you look at it from, is just the tan cardboard material showing. And I really like the fact that it's not all in color. I think it makes it interesting to have a little bit of variety. Again, I tried to give my my sculpture a little bit of color, a variety of shapes. I also have a different, try to have at least a variety of sizes. I think that's really important to not only make it interesting, but for your stability, because you can see I have a couple of bigger pieces here. Those are kind of my anchor pieces, and then I started attaching the smaller pieces to the bigger pieces. In order to get this to stick, because there's no glue or tape or anything here, this is all connected just cardboard to cardboard. Each of my pieces, I took my scissors and I put just a little bit of a snip there. It's about a finger width of a snip on each side. And if you think about it like having one piece that's got a cut and the other piece has a cut, the opposite cuts then fit together and it stays reinforced that way. If you only cut one side, it might work, okay. It just depends on the cardboard and the angle, and I found it really worked much better if I cut both pieces, and it really wanted to stay connected really well that way. So look for ways in which you can attach them to make interesting angles, and if you have something with color, I think moving the color around also makes it interesting, but this should be able to stand on its own. So once you start connecting it, you'll kind of see how it's almost like a puzzle that comes together, but I thought this one turned out really great. The last one that I wanted to show you is one that is made out of multiple materials. I've got some cardboard pieces from a box. I've got my paper towel tube. I've got some clear plastic from a water bottle and some styrofoam. I had a lot of fun with this one because it just really was so many different things coming together. I did start out having my tube, because I wanted to have it raised up. I thought that was kind of interesting. I gave just a little bit of a snip on the underside so that I could push my cardboard pieces inside there, and that's what's making that kind of stay standing. Then I played around with this idea of taking my toilet paper tube, and I cut this on the angle, and you can see where it's all put together. That's how I cut it apart, and then I cut it in strips, and it automatically wanted to keep that little curvy effect from the roll, and I thought that was really interesting. So kind of playing on this whole curved theme, then I added a little bit of curve with some plastic from my water bottle, some curved pieces of styrofoam from the egg carton, and the way that these are attached, I did the same thing, just a little snip and pushed it on, and it's held on just by the little cut on each side so that they're interconnected that way. I did need to use a little bit of glue to attach my cardboard pieces, but I had a lot of fun with this one, and again, I think it makes it interesting when you're looking at this. How can you balance out the different materials so it kind of makes your eye move around the whole sculpture? And what kind of different lines can you get? Straight lines, curved lines, what different materials really kind of play together in a way that tells a fun story in your sculpture. So that's what I've got in terms of my examples. Hopefully that's given you a few ideas. I'm sure you'll come up with some awesome creative ideas on your own. Just ask and see what you've got around the house, see what you can come up with. If you decide to do one of these awesome sculptures, consider posting a picture of your finished piece on the Hutchings Elementary Facebook page so we can take a look at how you chose to demonstrate Earth Day and using recycled material. Okay, good luck and have fun, guys.